It had been a long, tiring day for Emily. She had just finished her shift at the late-night bookstore and was walking home through the usual streets of the city. The air was crisp with the hint of autumn, but there was something about this particular night that felt off. The usual chatter of city life was strangely absent, and a thick fog had begun to roll in from the edges of the street, wrapping around the buildings like a suffocating shroud. She had taken this route 100 times before, but tonight, everything felt different. The alleyway that cut through a row of old shops, which she often used as a shortcut, was darker than usual. It was as if the alley itself had swallowed the light. She hesitated for a moment but shrugged it off. She was tired, and the alley would get her home faster. She stepped forward into the narrow passage, the soles of her shoes tapping on the wet cobblestones. The air felt heavy, and the silence felt wrong, like a presence was lingering just out of sight. The fog swirled around her, distorting the view of the buildings on either side, and the shadows seemed to shift, even when she was sure no one was near. As she walked deeper, the alley stretched longer than she remembered. The walls, once cracked and weathered, now seemed to close in on her, making the path feel even narrower. Emily shivered and pulled her jacket tighter around her, feeling a sudden unease. Then, she heard it. A soft rustling, a whisper in the mist. At first, she thought it was just the wind, but then the whisper turned into a voice. Low, almost unintelligible, as if the air itself was speaking. Emily, come closer. Her heart raced, and she stopped in her tracks. Her breath came out in shaky clouds, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly scared. The voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. She spun around, expecting to see someone behind her, but the alley was empty, just the endless stretch of fog. The light from the nearby street lamp barely made it this far, and the shadows seemed to deepen as she stared into the void. She quickly turned back to continue her walk, but the fog had thickened, and she realized the end of the alley was nowhere in sight. Panic rose in her chest as the alley began to stretch further than she had ever remembered. The buildings on either side were distorted, their windows now black voids, their once comforting features now grotesque and unfamiliar. The alley felt endless. Then, the whispers came again, this time clearer. Emily, it's waiting. She spun around again, her heart pounding in her chest. The alley seemed to bend, the walls growing taller and tighter, as if the very passageway itself was alive. The air was thick, heavy with the sense of something terrible watching her. She was no longer sure which way was the right one. A sudden movement caught her eye, a shape in the mist. Tall, unnaturally thin, it loomed in the darkness ahead. She couldn't see its face, but she could feel its eyes on her. A chilling cold washed over her as she took a step back, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching, waiting. Leave me alone, Emily whispered, her voice trembling. She wanted to scream, but the words got caught in her throat. Without thinking, she bolted forward, desperate to get out. The alley seemed to close in behind her, the walls pressing in, forcing her forward with terrifying speed. She could still hear the whispers, now louder, more frantic. They surrounded her, coming from all sides, as if the very alley itself was alive, reaching for her. Her feet pounded against the stones, and just as she thought she might escape, she saw it, an opening. The end of the alley. A gateway to the street beyond, where safety might be. She sprinted toward it, pushing her body harder than she ever had before. But just as her hand reached out for the light at the end, the figure in the mist moved. It was in front of her now, blocking the way. Emily stopped dead in her tracks, her blood running cold. She couldn't see its face, but she could feel its presence, pressing against her, suffocating her. The whispers were deafening, like 1,000 voices screaming at once. Emily, come home, the voice hissed, its tone twisting into something dark, something not human. The figure reached out a hand. Its fingers were long, unnaturally so, and as it moved closer, Emily could see the darkness swirling in its eyes, the endless void staring back at her. She could feel its cold breath against her skin, hear its jagged, broken breathing. Frozen in terror, Emily tried to move, but her body wouldn't respond. The figure was too close now, its hand just inches from her face. She could feel the cold, icy grip of its presence, pulling her into the abyss. In that moment, everything went dark. Emily woke up on the same cobblestone path. The alley was silent, and the mist had cleared, leaving only the faint glow of distant streetlights. But the sense of dread lingered, heavy in the air. The alley was the same, but it was no longer familiar. It was as if she had never left. And in the distance, she could still hear it, those whispers, calling her name. Emily, you can't leave. The alley had claimed her. And now, it would never let her go. From that night on, people who walked past the alley spoke of hearing whispers, of seeing a figure standing at the end, beckoning them closer. But those who ventured too far never came back. And the alley, through the fog and silence, waited for its next victim.